is really pumping out ridiculous numbers, and you can just scale as much as you want. You want 10 scholars? You're looking at a return of over $5,000 a week. In this video, I'll show you how you can really scale up your earning potential with Illuvium. If you haven't watched part 1 of this video, I'll have a link in the description below. Part 1 explained how to set up a scholar account, management of those scholars, and how to find a scholar. In this video, I'll show you how it all adds up to you making $100 per day per scholar, and even how you can scale that higher. My name is Najif, and I'm a professional ranger. Like all of you, I crash landed here in Illuvium with nothing. Join me on my journey as I capture and train Illuvials as I battle my way to the top. You're watching Najif Plays Journey Through Illuvium. Let's pull up the spreadsheet and get right into the numbers. Alright, so this is how you're going to earn $100 per week. It looks like there's a lot going on here, but I'm going to walk through it with you right now. So this top section is our variables. Now I've made this so we can change up all the variables, but these are the ones I'm going with for right now, which would be my best guess. So we're looking at the cost of a loop to be $10, a shard to be $10. We've heard those numbers from Kieran in different interviews. Now in this section, I have how much you're gonna pay your scholar per loop and I just did a simple calculation by looking at the minimum wage in the Philippines. I use them as an example because I know there's a lot of play and earn gamers there, and a lot of my scholars for Axie Infinity are from the Philippines. So I just did a quick Google search and I saw their minimum wage down there is about $1.30. So I put $1.30 per loop, even though we're looking at a loop being about 30 minutes, which is another thing we've heard in an interview from Kieran. And then I put an ROI of about 125%. Again, that's something that we can change up, but I think that's a pretty conservative number. And depending on the demand of the game, that could go much higher. Then I have what I'm estimating as daily earnings from probably survival mode, maybe ranked PvP, any way where you can earn the IOV token. I'm estimating that at about $4 per day, and I'm just basing that number off of a couple other games that I know about and what the daily earning potential is for those games. And then in here, I'm putting what percentage you would pay your scholar for just the daily earnings section. You can choose the pay period for your scholar, so you can put, once a week, so you put in 7 days, you can put in 14 days. But we're going to go with 7 days, so once a week right now. Now let's say you fund their account for 14 loops. You give them about 2 shards per loop to use. That is going to cost you about $420 funded into the game. At an ROI of about 125%, in return you'll have $525 worth of assets. Now you're paying your scholar $1.30 per loop. So for 14 loops in that week, the scholar is going to make about $18. After you pay your scholar and deduct what you funded the initial account with, you're going to end up with about $87 in profit of in-game assets for that week. We'll go just down here. So this is going to be added onto that. So for survival mode, we're saying that there's about $4 a day in earnings. So for 7 days, giving your scholar 50%, looking up here, it's going to be $14 for the scholar, $14 for you. But like I said, we can change some of these. So if you wanted to give the scholar 40%, it'd be $11 for the scholar and about $17 for you. Now these are our totals down here in the bottom left. So after 7 days, you can see with this setup and using these variables, the scholar is going to end up making close to $30 for the week. And you as the manager are going to be making a profit of just over $100 of in-game assets. Now here we can change this to look at 30 days. So every month you're looking at the scholar making about 126, you're making 444, and then we can even go to a year. And with this setup, the scholar's making about $1,500 per year, and you're making just over $5,300 per year. And you can scale this up as much as you want. If we're thinking this is just one scholar, then, multiply these numbers by as many scholars as you want to set up. As much money as you're willing to fund these accounts with, you can multiply these numbers by. So let's just say, for example, you want 2 scholars. So 2 scholars, so we'll put 14 in here to account for the second scholar. So you could be making $207 per week with 2 scholars. You go 3 scholars, you can be making about $310 per week, and you can just keep scaling that up. Now, the tough part to think about is what value you want to extract from each account. Because when we're looking at this ROI, we're looking at in-game assets. So those are mostly the alluvials and any resources within the game. You don't want to take all of it out because then you're leaving your scholar at the base level. And the more value you leave in your scholar's account, the more potential earnings in the future. So if you decide you just want to leave all of that value in the account, maybe their daily earnings turn to $8 per day. And then the ROI in assets goes up to 140%. So then just by letting the value compound in the scholar's account, you can get a greater ROI in the future after that. So you could be looking at upwards of 200 per week per scholar. And if you decide, you have a scholar from a different area, they're doing well, you basically negotiate what you want to pay these scholars. You could even, start paying them $2 per loop and still have a good ROI on that. And if you want to incentivize them to play more of the survival mode, you could bump up their earnings over here to 60%. All of these numbers can be adjusted to how you want to set up your scholarship, but these are just the numbers that I'm going off of, I'm thinking in my head, and kind of what I'm expecting out of this game at this point. On a side note, all of these calculators and charts I make are in the numbers program for Apple. Anyone out there wants to work with me to convert these calculators and charts to Excel or to put up on a website, please reach out to me, in the comments down below here or on Discord. I'd love to work with anybody who's willing to help me out to get this out, this gaming population. Okay, so after I initially filmed this, I realized there was a lot more that needs to go into this video. So I'm going to talk about more of my strategy right here. And then I'm going to get back into the spreadsheet a little bit. I've added in a multiple for scholars, and I also just want to go over like a complete bear case versus a bull case. So my strategy here, so to fund these accounts, I'm going to be focusing on buying SILV2. If you don't know already, SILV is synthetic ILV. You can get that from staking regular ILV. A few months ago, there was a hack to the original SILV, and coming very soon, likely within this next week, there'll be a second version of the SILV coming out. So I'm going to be loading up on that for in-game purchases because you can get it at a discount. The next thing I'm going to do is focus on leaving tier 1 and tier 2 alluvials in the scholar's account because those are going to be less valuable, but it'll let the scholar's account be able to build up and progress through the game. So in the future, they're able to battle and catch higher tier alluvials. If they come across and catch a tier 4 and tier 5, those are probably going to be the alluvials I extract from the account to either use in my main account or sell on the market. And then the tier 3 alluvials will kind of be in the middle. I'll have to make a judgment call on that. So I'm going to start the game probably with 2 scholars, and then I'm going to see which scholar performs the best and then fund that scholar for more loops. Now, what can be good for a manager but unfortunate for those looking for scholarships is that it makes more sense from a manager point of view to have a couple really good scholars and fund their account and let those accounts build rather than spreading everything out for more scholars. So I think starting with 2 is a good starting point, and I might build up from there. Or if these 2 scholars perform really well, I might just fund their account more. I'm going to pay out the scholars probably bi-weekly. That's just something I've been used to with some other games like Axie Infinity. And I'm looking to pay them out between 30 and 50% of the earned ILV. And the reason, because I have a range on that right now, is 1, we don't know how much ILV will be able to be earned. 2, we don't know the price of ILV. And 3, I'm probably going to adjust that percentage based on how well the scholar is performing. And then I'm going to work on reinvesting 100% of the value from these scholars back into the game for as long as possible until I feel like I need that money to go elsewhere. I'm thinking long term on this game, so I'm going to be taking very little, if any, profits out on the early end and just keep building up these accounts. And I'm thinking at least through the first generation of alluvials, which could be a whole year. And by reinvesting that in, I'm not saying it's all going to be reinvested right into the scholar's account. It's going to be reinvested into staking, getting some alluvatars, land, new scholars if I feel like that'll be beneficial, and then just for me personally, investing back into my YouTube channel. All right, so getting back into the spreadsheet. So like I said, in here I have a complete bear case and a bull case. In this bear case, you can see I changed the loop cost to $3 and the shard cost to $3. That's something that we've heard in an interview from Kieran, that they could go down that low to make it more of a microtransactions rather than having them at $10. And at this cheaper price, I think you could go down to maybe paying $1 per loop, depending on what kind of scholar you get. And then for the return on investment, I think the lowest we're going to get is about a 10% return. In daily earnings, I think $5 will be on the low end, and you'd be paying these scholars 50%. So I've changed this so we're looking at a 1-day payout. At these lower prices, you can see that even having one scholar completing 7 loops a day and having 14 shards available really is a break even for you. So in this case, you'd have to pay a scholar less, maybe 80 cents per loop, and really hope that the ROI might be a little higher. And then in this case, you're really making your money based on the daily earnings, which in this case is not very high. So like I said, this is a complete bear case, and in this case, it might not be worth your time and money to invest into a scholarship system unless you think these things are going to change and really grow in value and the game's going to just completely blow up. I don't think this is going to be the case. And also, if say a tier 1 travel and shard cost is $3, a tier 4 and tier 5 travel cost likely going to be closer to that $10 or even higher. So then you might want to look at funding your scholars but having them travel and play the game at the higher tier levels. Now for where it gets fun. So here's a bull case. We're looking at an average cost for a loop being $10 and shards $10. We're looking at an ROI of about 150%. Again, complete bull case. We don't know if it'll be that high, but it's possible. In this case, there's going to be a lot of value, and I think you could pay these scholars $1.50 per loop, reasonable depending on the scholar you get. And we could look at a daily earnings of $10 a day. And again, even though this is the bull case, that could be even higher. So if you're funding 2 loops per day and 4 shards for each scholar, it's going to cost you about $60 to fund that account. But you can see when we get down here in the bottom left, that's going to be giving you $224 per week. Now, we can alter these numbers a little bit more and say we have 3 scholars. Say the daily earnings is closer to $15. Say we're really having them focus on the tier 4 and tier 5 gameplay, and those loops and shards might be costing closer to $20. And then you have 3 scholars, but you might as well have them do 4 loops a day and give them 8 shards a piece. Now, again, these numbers look crazy when you do it, but you're looking at $2,500 a week. Even if you bring this down and say you're getting a 130% ROI in this setup, that's still $1,500 per week. So as you can see, there's a lot of unknowns, and there is a bear case for scholarships, but the bull case is really pumping out ridiculous numbers, and you can just scale as much as you want. You want 10 scholars? It might cost you $2,400 a day to fund this amount, but you're looking at a return of over $5,000 a week. So forget even playing this game yourself. If you just want to get into the investment side and focus on scholarships, you can scale this up as much as you want and easily make a full-time living out of it. And another thing to note, this is just one small part of what you can do with Illuvium. I have other videos that will talk about, a lot of the other ways you can earn in Illuvium. It really gets ridiculous. But that's it for what I'm adding in here. You'll have to find the right balance of value that you're extracting from the Scholar account and value that you're leaving in the Scholar account. Keeping in mind, the more value you keep in the Scholar's account, the more earning potential that Scholar will have in the future. I do plan on making a third part to this video, which will be more from the scholar perspective. If you want to find a good manager and make some money or crypto from gaming risk-free, that'll be a great video for you. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And as always, thank you for joining me on my journey through Illuvium. Make sure you click that subscribe button and check out this video I've highlighted here if you haven't seen it already. I highly recommend it. I'm also on Instagram, posting more content about Illuvium, Fancy Birds, Axie Infinity, and more. So go give that a follow. You can find all these links below, including my Linktree link. If you're interested in Drip or just another way you can support the channel, then use my link to join my downline. Thanks again.